If you're a C-suite executive, one of the most frustrating, infuriating initiatives that you can undertake is an IT development initiative. It drives you up the wall for a number of reasons, but mostly because of the ridiculous amount of time and budget it takes and the constant plethora of excuses, and it never ceases to end. And the fact is, bullshit baffles brains, and you're constantly told something and you feel you don't understand it, so you don't have any control. Shaun Orpen is with me today. Shaun, am I out of line, or is this something that is really happening right now?
Hi, Scott. Great to be here, and thank you very much. Yes, you're absolutely right. And I think the real challenge today is how do you ensure your technology capability can grow and develop at the same pace that your business requires? And that has become ever so important now as we come through the pandemic, as companies are transitioning into this digital world faster and faster. Every business is a technology business now.
Well, that's a good point. And when you say every business is a technology business, let's just sort of break it down and go back to basics. So it's highly unlikely that there is a business out there right now that is not undertaking some form of technology initiative, many more than one. And those that haven't, like you say, need to get started quickly. Just give us some ideas of some of the first and most important things that, from a business perspective, that these executives need to think about before or during this problematic exercise.
Okay, so the first issue, I think, is that speed is absolutely critical. I hear so many stories of people being told, well, it's going to take years, not months or weeks, to transition this software or build new software. And the reality is software now takes far too long, costs too much, and as you said in your introduction, is increasingly risky, in so much as many projects never see the light of day. So there has to be a better way of building software that addresses this issue.
Okay, now this is where we start to get into some of the exciting bits, because one of the main issues that we have today is that executives, now I'm in the same situation. I look at technology as a whole bunch of lines of code, and somebody's sitting there and writing lines of code. But that's starting to change. It's now more about building blocks that can be put together in a specific way. So tell us, over the last couple of years, how has technology innovated from lines of code into something new and different?
Well, it is interesting that the whole direction of software development has been to finding easier ways for people to develop software. But actually, there's still a fundamental issue at the heart of it, which is that if you're going to build software, you're going to write source code. And even if you're not going to write the code, the environment that you're using will create that source code in the back. And managing that source code is what takes so much time. Developers can spend up to 60% of their time simply managing the source code that's being created. And I say managing, what do I mean? Well, the underlying technologies are always changing. So you have to be able to keep that code current if you want to keep your application up and running. So again, we think there's a better way of building software where you're not spending 60% of your time simply maintaining your software. You need to be innovating with the business and pushing the business forward.
Okay, so you're in a situation where, and this happens all the time, you're told that it's going to take months, it ends up taking years. It's going to cost X, it costs 3X. So you're saying there is a better way. Let's just go into a little bit more detail, because what is that better way? And if you're spending 60% just maintaining current code, like how do you avoid these pitfalls?
Well, of course I'd say that, but that's where SCAD software comes in. We've built a whole development environment where we use metadata rather than source code, and we've used this and we've tested it in large companies, small companies, different sectors, and reliably we can build software 75% faster and 30% less cost than traditional software development. But probably the most important thing, which we haven't spoken about, is that as a CEO, whether you do your development in-house or you outsource it, in traditional terms, the risk is all on you, because you're either paying for full-time salaries or you're paying a day rate for someone. But either way, you're paying them irrespective of delivery. We believe there should be a different way of building software. And actually, for us, with our customers, we share some of that risk. And so we orientate the remuneration to the point at which we deliver and or when the client sees value from it.
Okay, so let me just make sure I'm hearing you correctly here. Essentially, what you're saying is you don't pay until you see delivery.
That's correct for the majority of our remuneration, yes.
Okay, because that doesn't normally happen. Normally, you've got to pay at least a third up front, possibly half up front, and then there's kind of the rest sort of in deliverables and dribs and drabs.
Yeah.
And by the time you get towards the end of the project, everybody is a little bit frustrated, annoyed. They just want to get the thing finished and done. And then, of course, that's going to lead into the next topic now, which is this documentation and this concept of being exit ready. But before we get there, I mean, is that correct? I mean, do you look for those kinds of partnerships?
Yeah, and that is exactly what we look for. For us, it is about a long-term partnership. And partnership is not just a word. It actually means we share some of the risk. We've all got skin in the game. And ethically, we think that's the right way for us to do business. We're confident in our ability to deliver, and we stand by that.
So if you're going to be partners, then obviously the actual software itself needs to deliver what it says it's going to deliver, but it also needs to be exit ready. So let's talk about that now. Tell us about what exit ready means, and also the fact that this notion of documentation needs to be done in a specific way so that if ever anything changes, there needs to be handover. Because one thing that that executives are worried about is being stuck with the same development partner for the end of time.
So I think there are two things you're bringing out there, Scott. So let's talk about documentation first. This is one of the most hated jobs by any developer, and in all the surveys that are out there. And the reason is simple. They're not good at it, and they don't believe anyone reads it. And to a certain extent, they're true, because actually trying to read developers' technical documentation, even if you are a developer, is actually very difficult. So with our methodology, the technical documentation is developed automatically as an automatic output of using metadata, because the metadata becomes the documentation. So we get rid of that significant amount of time. Typically 30% of a developer's time can be spent doing documentation. We replace that, and again, we think it's more important that developers are focusing on innovation and thinking about how they can help the business move forward, and leave the rest to us in that sense. The second part of what you mentioned there is about that exit strategy and about making sure that you're not stuck with a development partner or a development team from here on in. One of the things that we offer our clients is an exit strategy. So if after a period of time a client says, well, thank you very much, I now want to go and do something different, we will take the application that's in our metadata framework and we will migrate it back out into source code, into a modern day language. It's a chargeable service, but it always means that the client has that proper exit strategy to go in whatever direction they want.
It sounds amazing. So tell us a little bit about SCAD software itself. Why did you get so excited about it, and what type of clients are you looking for?
So I got excited about it because I genuinely think this is a really interesting way of building software, and it's absolutely in line with where the industry is going. But from what I can see, no one has created a complete development framework using metadata. Lots of people use it for bits and pieces, but not as a complete framework. So I believe it does have the opportunity to really transition the whole way that software is built. And I got excited by that. The company's actually been in existence for 20 years. Initially, the company was involved in selling to a lot of the big banks and big financial institutions. Increasingly, though, now we're focusing more on the smaller, medium-sized market, and it can be cross industry. So we are talking to lots of people in financial services. We're talking to people in healthcare, property. You know, we've even recreated an ERP system for a client, which I think was our longest project, and that took us 8 months.
Well, that's my final question. And my final question, Shaun, is obviously one of the key fears that businesses have is it sounds like that you're pulling something out of the box and tweaking it to fit the needs of a client. And then the client's going to worry that it's not specific and unique to them. Talk us through that dilemma.
So that's why a lot of people, instead of building their own software, go the route of buying packaged solutions. So whether that's an ERP solution, a CRM system, or whatever. And you're right, in a lot of cases, they don't need all those requirements. In truth, building bespoke software needn't be as expensive as you think. And certainly we see a number of clients coming to us because they're paying very significant fees for packaged solutions. And when you look at it, certainly using our framework, at times that can actually save you quite a bit of money.
Fantastic. Shaun Orpen from SCAD Software. Once again, thank you so much for joining me on scottkundle.com.
Pleasure. Thank you, Scott.